Hello and welcome to the Nonprofit Thrivability Podcast by the Patterson Foundation. I am your host, Reed Corley, consultant and podcast producer. Today, we are speaking with Richard Russell, General Director of the Sarasota Opera, and our topic of conversation is Margin and Mission Ignition, also referred to as MMI. MMI is an initiative by the Patterson Foundation in partnership with No Margin, No Mission, a national consulting firm. Through Margin and Mission Ignition, nonprofits gain access to expert guidance so that they can explore new ways to build thriving organizations with diverse revenue sources that sustain and extend their capacity to do good in the community. In simple terms, MMI helps nonprofits develop earned revenue sources. In this episode with Richard, we discuss the basics of MMI. We discuss his experience working with No Margin, No Mission, the outcomes he has seen since working with them, and we emphasize keeping the mission in Margin and Mission Ignition. If you are interested in learning more about MMI, please scan the QR code here or visit thepattersonfoundation.org/margin-mission-ignition. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Richard Russell. All right, Richard, thank you so much for joining me today. If you would just start us off by introducing yourself and the Sarasota Opera.
I'm Richard Russell. I'm the General Director of Sarasota Opera. Sarasota Opera is the largest opera company in Florida. We are a $10 million opera company that produces 5 operas a year. We own and operate the historic Sarasota Opera House, which will be celebrating its 100th anniversary next year.
Wow. And so the reason we are talking today is because of your involvement in Margin and Mission Ignition, an initiative that's put on by the Patterson Foundation in conjunction with No Margin, No Mission, a consulting company. For those who don't know about Margin and Mission Ignition at all, would you please just give us the basics, what it is? What would you tell somebody who has no idea what Margin and Mission Ignition is?
Sure. It's an initiative. Margin and Mission Ignition is an initiative which empowers nonprofits to create earned income opportunities that align with its mission, but also create extra revenue for the company. And the initiative itself helps us with building capacity, understanding the processes, and really launching nonprofits on what is generally something separate from what they're normally doing. So it's a new thing for many nonprofits.
And so when did you join Margin and Mission Ignition? And can you explain the process that they took you through from, kind of that very first meeting through till the end? And were these like small group sessions? Was it one-on-one coaching consulting? Would you kind of just dig into the details on what MMI does?
Well, it's a combination of both large group sessions and one-on-one coaching. But we started, and gosh, I can't remember exactly when we started. I want to say it was about 2 years ago. And we started with a series of sessions with No Margin, No Mission, with a number of other nonprofits, kind of envisioning what we could do in the earned income space. What were opportunities that we maybe weren't pursuing or did not have enough capacity to really move forward with. And I have to tell you that I've known of this initiative for a number of years when it launched. But for a long time, I didn't participate because we had several earned income initiatives that were going on and that we've been doing for a number of years. We rent our opera house, we do events, we rent sets, and we rent costumes. So I really wasn't sure that it was appropriate for us. But in the first session, we came to understand that it wasn't only just for brand new initiatives, but also to help build capacity for some existing initiatives. And we thought that we had an initiative that would work well under that rubric, which was our costume collection. And we had bought a very large stock of costumes back in 2019. And it was to add on to an existing stock of costumes. But this new group of costumes made us the largest costume rental organization for opera in the North America. So we bought these in 2019 and took delivery in September of 2019. They were still in boxes when COVID hit. So we weren't really able to launch this great expansion of what we were doing until well into 2021. Actually, we did some rentals in 2020, but it was under small things. We did a couple of films, we did some commercials. But the process, it was really an opportunity for us to relaunch this initiative and to build the capacity to make it successful. So we went through these 3 sessions, I believe they were, with other groups. They whittled down and invited us to participate. And we began that consulting with Mike Oxman, where we walked through putting together a business plan, putting together a marketing plan, putting together all the pieces that would help us make this business successful. And that has continued. And we are still meeting with Mike on a monthly basis to review the progress, to help us identify opportunities that we may not be taking advantage of yet.
I think it's interesting because your organization's a little unique in the fact that you guys had earned income sources before the costume rentals and before you even began your work with MMI. So why did you pursue additional earned income sources? Why was costume rental right for you and your mission? And how did no mission and Margin Mission Ignition help you kind of align that mission and the costume rentals and like bundle it all together so it made sense for you guys?
Sure. Well, we have been building costumes for years, but on a small scale. And we would rent other costumes, and we rented from this costume company in Toronto called Malabar. Back in 2018, the owner of Malabar, who was in his early 80s, was beginning to slow down and looking for potential sale of the costumes. And he approached us with, frankly, an offer I couldn't refuse. And it made a lot of sense for us because, one, it protected our costs. If this collection went away and we did not have it available for us to rent, our costume costs were going to go up, and we would also be subject to inflation. We would have to build more. This collection is unique in that it's 135 opera productions, but also a variety of other costumes so we can assemble other productions. That doesn't really exist elsewhere in the opera world. So it would cost us more to costume ourselves. So really that made a lot of sense from that perspective. Secondly, we're a nonprofit. We make a certain amount of money from ticket revenue. We make a certain amount of money from raising funds from our donors. Having a stable source of income that we can rely on to supplement those sources will help us, maintain ourselves through emergencies like COVID, for example. It will create additional revenue for us to support our mission. And also it supports our industry as well, our opera industry. And the third reason why we wanted to buy these collection of costumes is they're historic. They're incredible costumes. And if we didn't buy them, they were going to get what I call stripped from parts. A costume company was going to turn them into Halloween costumes and things like that. And these are too valuable to our industry to do that. So it made perfect sense. What happened was we weren't, because of COVID, we were not able to launch this part of this expansion in the way that we needed to. And so for a long time, they were sitting in boxes in a warehouse. We could go and find the costumes. Luckily, we packed them pretty efficiently. But we weren't able to really begin marketing it as a business because of COVID. And it was the opportunity of re-looking at how we were going to approach this, generating additional resources to support the business. So making sure that we had the right, infrastructure as far as a warehouse was concerned, making sure we had the right database for maintaining a log of these costumes, the right processes for reaching out to our contacts, all of that. The Margin Mission Ignition really gave us the opportunity to sit back and really look at this holistically so that we could launch this with a certain degree of success.
And, that's really interesting because I imagine you had to do some hiring with other people. So did you have to hire new people to help run the costume rental? What was the process of going through some of those standard operating procedures, let's say, for renting the costumes, managing the whole database? And how did Margin Mission Ignition help you guys think through that? Was it the ability to sit back and kind of, think at it from a higher level? So I guess that's a couple questions, but did you have to hire people, and how did MMI help you with building capacity and then the actual standard operating procedures, let's say?
Well, really re-looking at the business plan and understanding what resources we were going to need. We kind of knew, but our resident costume designer, Howard Kaplan, who's been with us now for 27 years, he had always managed our costume rentals, but it was always on a small scale. He's frankly the impetus for the purchase of the collection, because the man who owned Malabar had a close relationship with him and trusted him with his legacy, basically, is the reason why he gave us this opportunity at a very good price to buy these costumes. So we knew Howard was going to manage it. What we didn't know for sure is, okay, how are we going to staff it beyond that? Are we going to use hourly labor from our union crew? Or are we going to need to hire dedicated people to run it? And sitting down and going through this process really helped us figure, okay, we were going to need at least two people. We're going to need one person to manage the collection, to sort through it. We're going to need another person to do some of that, but also to manage the paperwork involved, to keep the database of our clients, to do the invoicing and all of that. So, and of course, there's other resources that we needed from our existing operations. So we're getting help from our marketing department, which also markets our opera productions. We're getting help from our accounting department, who actually does the invoicing, and they take care of a lot of that stuff, and we'll take in the money, obviously. So going through this process really helped us to align everything well, to understand the resources we need. It also gave us the opportunity to say, okay, what other equipment do we need? How do we need to better outfit the warehouse? We knew we needed a warehouse, but what do we need in the warehouse? And going through this process allowed us to come up with that. And then, the initiative in which we raised some additional money, and as basically looking for investors, that really helped us build that capacity to enable us to operate more efficiently.
And so you mentioned alignment there, and alignment is extremely important for the Patterson Foundation. How did you go about aligning the rest of your stakeholders around this initiative? Because just like you said, you had to invest additional money into this. I bet you had to pull some people on board. Your costume designer, he's getting a lot more work, I assume. So how did you go about aligning all of your stakeholders around this initiative?
Well, I think it was important when we decided to make the purchase. I had to put together a financial plan for our board. And this is before we did margin, mission, ignition. I did need to put together a financial plan to understand what the impact would be on us financially. And we actually pulled out at one point and then went back in because he lowered the price to a point where I felt comfortable, not only comfortable that it was made sense for us financially, but also that we could raise the additional money for the purchase. Once we made that decision, I needed to work. Our costume designer was fully on board with this. He's the one who encouraged this. He's the one he had to get me on board, basically, because he felt this was a good business. He is despite being an incredibly creative person, is also a very business-minded person. So he understands the potential rental, the market out there. He has connections. So not having him part of this would not have made this a success. So being a part of this was crucial to success, but we also need to think about the time when he may not be part of it. So we need to put those pieces in place as well. I needed my board aligned. I need my staff aligned. I need my finance guy aligned. I need my market person aligned. I need my artistic director aligned. And even though he's not directly involved with the costume rentals, he saw the value of having the costumes available to us and giving us more opportunity for our productions, and basically having more costumes available for us to give us more flexibility in programming. So getting everybody together was a bit of a process. It really was. Making sure selling it to the board especially was not an easy process, but ultimately I think we did it, and I think everybody bought in. But they're also very invested in making sure that it's a success. So they want to know, they want to report on how it's doing and all of that. Then there's the other piece with our donors, who were actually very excited about this. That was not a hard sell, because the donors many of whom are business people, understand the need to generate additional earned revenue. They were excited at seeing, because they know the quality of our costumes, so they're excited to see that we had these costumes available. One of the great things I've been able to do since we did this is bringing the donors in for a tour of the warehouse where the costumes are. They're inevitably incredibly impressed by this.
Wow. I bet that makes people want to support your organization even more, I bet, because they know that you're not relying on their dollar to be open next season. You guys have this ability to generate all this additional revenue.
Well, we always rely on their dollar to stay open.
Okay.
So but to know that we're at least, I think it's that we're good stewards of their dollars, that we are making thoughtful decisions on the use of their money so that they realize that they're investing that's something that will be around for a long time.
Good point. So how has joining MMI changed how you think about strategy, revenue going forward into the future now?
First of all, it's really allowed us to keep a close eye on this initiative and making sure that that's running well and that we're investing in it appropriately, that we're doing the right things. And it gives us kind of benchmarks to be able to mark our performance. We've also taken that with some of our other earned revenue initiatives, primarily the rental of the theater, and understanding what we need to make that successful. It's, we've changed the way we've looked at our finances a little bit because we've looked at now these kinds of things as separate business lines, even though, it all rolls up into our nonprofit and loss statement. It enables us to look at this all separately to say, okay, how's this doing? How's this doing? For example, we own apartments. We own apartments that were originally designed as artist housing, but we also rent them out to other nonprofits when we're not using them. So that's a separate business line, looking at all of that expenses, the related expenses, and then also what we're saving. Which is important. What we're saving on our operations by owning these apartments, by owning these costumes, by owning the theater. I mean, so we have begun to look at that a little bit differently than we were previously. We always did costume rentals. We always did set rentals. But now, actually separating them out as separate business lines, it's enabled us to keep better track on it and making sure that we're making the right moves on those. It's not just an afterthought.
I bet that is exciting to see on the P&L statement, or just knowing how much it is that you're saving through all of this investment that you guys are making. Turn back away from y'all and more towards the external audience here. What is a cookie from your jar, a piece of advice that you would give some other organization who is walking a similar path here, that might be with margin mission ignition or just pursuing additional earned income without margin mission ignition?
Well, I have two thoughts. One is be open to the possibilities. It may not be immediately evident but once you think through it, it may make sense to do an earned income initiative. I've actually encouraged some of our colleagues. I've had conversations within the opera industry with a lot of my colleagues who are fascinated by us doing this and want to think about ways that they can potentially generate additional revenue. So, and it's interesting watching this process because I think it's part of us as an arts organization being creative. I think we should apply that to our businesses as well. Secondly is maintain the discipline of looking at this and looking at it regularly. Don't just think it's off on itself and, you don't have to worry about it. You really need to maintain that discipline. Just as I'm looking at ticket sales, just as I'm looking at donations, I'm also looking at costume rental sales. I'm looking at one of the things that's been really helpful in this process for us is the every month meeting with Mike has motivated our costume designer to give me an every month report of, okay, these are the rentals we booked. These are the rentals that have come in. We're looking at how much income we've taken in every day. So we've created that discipline, which I hope will continue going forward and making sure that we're constantly on top of it and not taking anything for granted. And
that discipline is really important, I imagine, because I think when people hear about earned income opportunities for nonprofits. They get really excited. People have lots of big ideas, but then when it comes to the execution and then the follow-up and the discipline of staying with that, like you said, you can't just think that it's going to go off here by itself and run all by itself. You have to be checking in on that monthly, daily. So I think that is a very important point. So as we wind down this episode here, Richard, what, if any, are your final thoughts on margin, mission, ignition, just general last thoughts, anything that you want people to know about MMI before we end this episode?
I think it's really important that mission is part of the title of this initiative, because it does need to align with your mission. And you have to, as you're thinking about these kinds of opportunities, you have to make sure that it makes sense. And it makes sense along with the mission of the organization. If it was not costumes, it was something else that was totally divorced from what we do. I don't know. People come up with ideas all the time that we should be doing. And I look at it and I just say, it's not really aligned what we do. This was perfect because costumes are an essential part of what we do. And there were a number of strands that made this to make perfect sense. So I think it's really important to make sure that whatever you do, it's got to be in your wheelhouse. It's got to be aligned with your mission. It's got to be aligned with your expertise too. I think now it doesn't mean that you don't need to learn more. We needed to learn more about marketing costumes outside of our industry. We have the opera world covered, but we've also now done theater, university, commercials, film, Netflix, all of this have rented from us in the last 3 years. So, we had to learn more about those industries that we didn't. So I think you do need to learn more, but it always has to align with what your mission is.
That's great. Continuous learning and then putting the emphasis on mission in margin, mission, ignition. Richard, thank you so much for joining me here on the Nonprofit Thrivability Podcast today. Thank you for your time.
Sure. Thanks, Reed. It was a pleasure.
There are several ripple effects from Sarasota Opera's work with margin and mission ignition, including a stronger entrepreneurial mindset, increased operational efficiency, expanded brand visibility, and deeper staff engagement. You can read more about these ripple effects on the screen now or at the blog for this podcast. Thank you for listening to the Nonprofit Thrivability Podcast by Beyond the Blog. For more information, please visit thepattersonfoundation.org/beyondtheblog.